Hello and welcome everyone to this week's episode of the podcast. This week I am joined by the wonderful Kelly Twig. So Kelly, a lot of you guys may know her from Instagram. She's a jeweler. She makes incredible sea glass jewelry amongst other things. And she's also going to be joining us this year in September for the Diploma in Silver Jewellery, which she shared a little bit about on her social media as well. So we're going to be talking today about her Instagram because she has quite quickly built a really strong following. She's got over 30,000 followers and she's not been doing it for that long. And I think what's really interesting about Kelly and her Instagram is that she's just very real, and she shows up and she shows her face and all the things that a lot of us are a little bit terrified to do. But she's very down to earth, very lovely. And I think we'll be able to learn some things today about, what might be useful for growing your Instagram. And also, if you're thinking about joining any of the diplomas or just hearing about a journey, then this could be an interesting one for you. So, Kelly, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yes, and I can see you in your studio, your beautiful studio in the background.
I am. It's kind of semi-tidy at the moment, but there's kind of everything, everything going on behind me.
Yes, well, you're very organized. I've seen this from some of your reels on social media that you have all these tiny little drawers with tiny little stones in, and it's just
Yeah,
it's a dream.
it is. Yes, organization is a key thing for me because I know that if I don't have those systems in place, I would lose everything. And there's something very satisfying, I think, about having all your tools lined up and everything sorted and knowing where stuff is when you go to look for it.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's very rewarding to kind of have your treasure trove all in order and kind of sorted. So
Definitely.
let's start at the beginning because, like I said in the intro, you've kind of built this really wonderful community and following as an individual jewelry designer. And I think that's something that a lot of people aspire to do. And I think you've done it in a way where you've obviously put work in, but it's been quite fun for you as well. And I wouldn't say effortless, but it's kind of been quite natural, it seems. So before we get into talking about your Instagram specifically, perhaps you could share a bit about how you started making jewelry, what led you down that path.
Sure. I mean, I've always been a creative person. I've been making things artistic, producing things for a long, long time. I used to do beaded jewelry as a hobby, I think 15 years ago now, making beaded things, bits and pieces, never really to sell, but for like gifts for friends and family and things. I used to be in the Navy. I joined the Navy when I was 18. So that was pretty much my entire adult life. I was in the forces. And then when I met my husband and we had a baby, we went to America for a posting for 3 years, and I couldn't work over there. So I chose to leave and then concentrate on having my family. So that's kind of where my life sort of cut in half and took a sort of turning point. And then when we came back home, we moved to Alverstoke in Gosport near the sea, which actually is quite close to where I grew up, which is quite funny. But and then after doing that, when my children, they're very close in age. I've got three daughters, and they're now nearly 8, 9, and 10. So I had three under three for a while. So I was very busy. But once they started school, I wanted something for myself again. I didn't want to rejoin the Navy. I didn't want a military career again because I used to be an air traffic controller and that was far too stressful. But I wanted to do something, and I wanted to have that sense of identity, sense of purpose. I wanted something for me. And because the children were so young, self-employment kind of seemed the best option. And then I'd already got at the same time into beach combing and collecting sea glass, and that became sort of a new obsession. I've always loved the sea, obviously being in the Navy, but collecting sea glass and things like that. And then I thought, well, actually, maybe I could use that to make jewelry. And to do that, I need to learn how to metalsmith. I need to know how to work with silver and metals. And that was kind of the next progressive step from making beaded jewelry. I think a lot of jewelers start making beaded jewelry wire work and then cold settings, and then they kind of progress to using a torch and soldering. And it kind of, like everybody else, it kind of went from there. And then the rest is kind of history. And that was almost exactly 5 years ago that I started.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, yeah, I can definitely relate to I started with the beaded jewelry as well. And then very quickly I was like, oh, I could solder things, I could set stones, I could make, something a little bit different that seemed like almost proper jewelry, even though I think beaded jewelry
Yeah.
is proper as
I
well.
think I think the addiction to the beads and the gemstones then leads on to the actual gemstones, to the cabochons and things like those, and you start collecting them, and then before you know it, you've got to use them somehow. So
Yes. And you've been very good at collecting tools as well, haven't you, along the way?
Yes, that's something I never thought I would get into. You know, my late father used to be a mechanic, so he had a lot of very different kind of tools. But this is something I never thought I'd end up collecting and asking for tools and things for Christmas. I think my husband bought me my first pendant motor as a Christmas present, and my saw as well. You know, so that's another change in my direction. I would never have imagined that I'd be asking for.
Yeah, absolutely. So you had this kind of turning point where you left the Navy, which was obviously a very kind of structured, supported job in a way. And then you were like on your own at home thinking, how do I make some money and also do something that's less stressful? Because I've got three very small children who I'm sure were a lot of work to have at the same time.
Yeah,
Um,
they were.
so tell us a bit about how Instagram started for you. When did you start sharing? Were you already on Instagram, like just sharing for fun, or did you make a
Yeah.
decision like I'm gonna start my business Instagram?
Um, Not really. I'd had a sort of personal Instagram account for several years, but it was private, and I literally only used it for the filters and the photo effects because back then, that was the thing. Was it was Instagram was just photos, but I didn't really know how to use it. And then when I decided, I was going to set up a jewelry business, obviously it had to sustain itself, it had to fund itself, and then I set up the social media platforms and things, and Instagram was one of them. And I had no idea what I was doing. I set up my account again almost exactly 5 years ago, and I posted, I think, some really terrible photos. Just I
We all
just
started with
all in
terrible
one go,
photos.
just posted 10 photos. I didn't know what a hashtag was. I didn't know what I was doing. But very, very quickly, I found that I really loved the platform, and I started to connect and engage and kind of built a following with lots of other creatives, not just jewelry makers at that point, but small business owners, creatives, stay-at-home mums, other military spouses. And somehow I just sort of found people that were in a similar position to me and enjoyed making things and creating things. And it kind of went from there. And I think I've always, one of the reasons I've done so well with Instagram is because I genuinely enjoy using it. And I kind of went, as you said, from being, on my own, and self-employment it's quite hard. If you're working from home on your own, it's quite isolating and you can get quite lonely. And then all of a sudden in my phone, I have all these people. And I very quickly realized that not only were they sort of there, but I could communicate and engage and share things. And I could ask for help. I could say to people, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And I could get feedback. And it was brilliant. And of course, I was learning things as well. I found the Jewelers Academy, I found Metalsmith sites, lots of hints and tips. And then that's one of the ways I started learning, making the jewelry as well as picking up things as I went along from social media. And it kind of just sort of developed from there, really. And I think the nature of the way I post is I've never seen social media as a marketing tool. I think I didn't really know what I thought I was doing when I started. I just wanted to connect with people, and I never lost that. And I'm not one of those people that can just post all my jewelry and just say, buy this. I'm too British for that. I can't do a hard sell. But instead, it's to me, it's literally, it is about the community and it's about sharing my journey. And I do make sales through Instagram, and I'm always really grateful for those. But I think for me, it's more about showing, who I am, and not just showing the jewelry, but showing where the jewelry comes from. And it's kind of progressed from there, I think.
That's so
Really.
interesting. Like when you talk about how you really enjoy the platform and your approach to it, not as a marketing tool, but just as almost something for you. Like, oh, I get to do this, and I get to share things with people, and and I think sometimes, sorry, excuse me, got a bit of a cough today, everyone listening. I think sometimes we think, yeah, we come at it with such a strategy mindset of like, I need to post every day. I need to do this, that, and the other. And when it comes, I need to, sometimes that's okay and it's just part of the business. But other times it can feel like a real chore. And I
Yeah,
think I notice this in myself. Like if I'm posting and it feels like a chore, I think it comes across that way a little bit. Not always.
absolutely.
And even like with responding to comments and things, it's like, oh, I have to do this. As opposed to this energy of, oh, like people are talking to me. I want to respond, like this kind of social element of the platform. And I guess it kind of feeds off itself because when you enjoy it, other people connect and enjoy, and then they're looking forward to seeing it again, a bit like a like a group friendship, if that's even a thing.
It is, it really is. I mean, I've actually, and funnily enough, the people I've actually met at least two people turned out lived in my village, and I've actually become actual sort of real life friends with people. And a lot of the people that have followed me from the beginning, I would call friends, and I know that if we met up in real life, we would get on brilliantly. And I love that this sort of networking. And I think, like you say, it's the pressure. I think I've never really sort of followed the rules as such. I post what I enjoy posting about, and I think your audience will come. I mean, when it comes to the jewelry as well, I am my own target audience, really, which makes it easier. So I want to connect and engage with people who are like me and like the same things.
Mm.
And I've kind of never felt that pressure to post about things. And I think part of the appeal is I've always posted about quite a wide range of things. I post about the jewelry, I post about the sea, flowers, all the things that my inspiration, also the making process, even my cats, my children, my family life, because I think it's just showing people a little bit more of me. And I think being authentic, and being yourself, because like you say, if you're not comfortable with doing it, then don't do it. And I've never had a problem. I've always felt that I could be myself there, and I've never had to be anybody else. And I think that's refreshing. And if it ever gets to the point where I did feel pressured, I wouldn't enjoy using it as much. I mean, Reels is quite a good example of that. I've been editing and making videos for probably about 20 years. But when they told us we had to start doing reels,
They did tell us with an
I was like, no, I don't want to do. I like photographs. I like taking pictures. I don't want to do video that way. I didn't want to do it because I felt I was being forced to do it. And I remember I only really started making reels probably April last year, so about a year ago. But I know it makes a difference because I think at the time I had about 11,000 followers. So in the space of a year, I have trebled my following from putting out more video content. And I think, in a way, and now I've realized actually, okay, I've had to concede that it is popular. I do enjoy watching other videos too. And I've noticed that much as I tried to fight that, I do enjoy it. And I like seeing how things are made. And yeah, I like seeing funny cat videos that I can send to my friends as well. But it's that kind of content. I do enjoy making it as well. I do enjoy making videos. And I think that comes across because if you don't enjoy doing something, then you won't be as naturally good at it as if it's something that you do like doing.
Mm,
So
absolutely. Yeah. And I think, we can see from your socials as well that you're kind of enjoying that kind of social aspect of it and the communication. Do you ever, because your account's grown quite big now, do you ever get sort of negative comments or even just things that you think, oh, because I guess that's something that can put people off sometimes, isn't it? Is if you put
yeah,
yourself out there and thankfully most people are so lovely and supportive. But I think especially as accounts grow, there's always going to be some sort of, maybe not fully negative, but just sort of like, oh, okay, I've got to deal with that type comment. How do you handle those types of things?
do you know what? I haven't actually, and I'm probably an exception to the rule in that regard that I've never come across any sort of negativity. I think two or three like really sarcastic comments from people that don't follow me. And that's normally the reels that have done really well. People have obviously come across them on their explore page or something. They're not into jewelry and they're questioning why is this done so well, basically. So they're giving a sarcastic comment about it. And I'll just delete those. But in the whole, I just think, I've been really, really lucky. And the community that I'm with and the jewelry community as well is amazing. And I know a lot of jewelers choose not to follow other jewelers. And I can understand why, because there's the issue of, people thinking you're stealing everyone else's ideas and things like that. But I think, I think I'd be massively missing out. I think a lot of my following are other jewelers, but that's really important to me because we can support each other, learn from each other. And, I buy jewelry from other jewelers too, through Instagram, things that I see. If I see someone that's created something that I love, or a design that I really like, then I buy it because that's what, that's the way it sort of works. But I've not had any sort of negativity. And I'm really grateful for that the community and the people that I have are amazing. And they're so supportive. And the comments I get are so lovely. And, it really cheers you up. If you're having a bad day, I can go on Instagram and, it's kind of like this reassurance that there are nice people out there that, and it's a bit of a confidence boost as well because they like what I'm doing and they say they like what I'm doing. It's like when you get good reviews for your jewelry, when you sell it online, it's just having that kind of positive engagement. is nice, and it makes it a nice place to hang out. And again, which contributes to me enjoying using the platform as well, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I think you've attracted, that community to you with the energy you're putting out. So it kind of goes both ways, doesn't it? But yeah, that's awesome. And I think one of the things that's great about your socials is that you show your face a lot, and that your content is really good. Like it just is. And you said you've got quite a lot of experience in video, so that probably helps. But I think a lot of it is just your confidence and your ability to just talk to socials as if you're talking to a person. Whereas I think for a lot of us, sometimes myself included, it's like there's a phone in front of you and you're like, right, I need to present now. I'm going to be a bit weird and awkward, and it's going to all be kind of strange. And then I'm not going to like it. And then I'm not going to want to put it out there as much. And, all that kind of internal monologue stuff. So
Absolutely, it
when
is
you
hard.
sit, when you sit down to do a reel, talk us through, like, is it just quick and easy? Does it take like a day? Like, what's your process for making a reel?
I think it depends what I'm doing. I mean, if I'm making something and I want to show like a pendant or a ring, and I want to show the whole process, then I have to kind of like set aside some time when I can sort of do that. And I just grab my camera. I've got a couple of different holders, and I just film little sections of the process as I'm making it, little bits, and then from start to finish, and then put it in an app and edit it later. So those reels are the ones that take the most time if I know I'm going to do the whole process, if I'm making the entire thing, because I want to show from the beginning to the sort of end result. So those take a little bit longer to do. But at the same time, some of my most successful reels is if I'm making something, I've come up with, I'm a bit of an outside the box thinker, and nothing gives me more pleasure than coming up with a shortcut or a tip or a hint or some way of doing something or a tool that makes my life a little bit easier. And I get really excited about that. And then I think, oh, I've just discovered this. I can share this with everybody. And I think as a jeweler as well, when you have got a few years experience and you're used to doing things over and over again, you kind of forget. It becomes second nature to you, but it could still be the way you've learned to do it could still be revelatory or really helpful to someone that's new. And I think, oh, should I share this? And I'm like, why not share it anyway? Because even if there's one person out there who has never seen, doing something this way, and it helps them. And I genuinely get, I love helping people. I love to be able to share. If I learn something or I've got a technique or a way of doing something that will help someone else, then that's my way of giving back, because I've learned so much through Instagram and social media that if I think I've got something that can help other people, then yeah, I will share that too. And those kind of reels can take literally just 10 minutes. And it's always the ones that you spend less time doing.
Oh yeah, they go like
That
crazy.
sort of engagement. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they always say that everything is content, and you just kind of think, oh, just the little processes, and then, so yeah,
And I
those.
think you hit on an interesting point there, because I think sometimes we think if we're not like really at an advanced level, we can't start sharing things. But actually, sometimes it's easier to share along the journey because you're discovering things for yourself. Like I think you shared the other day, like, oh my God, the bench peg goes the
Oh,
other
no.
way around. And I was like, oh yeah, I mean, yeah, of course. But it's like because maybe I've known that for like 20 years, I wouldn't even think that that's a thing to share. But when it's almost like when you watch your children and they have fresh eyes and they're like, wow, a flower. And you're like, yeah, there's loads of flowers, but they're like, this is amazing. It's kind of, yeah, you underestimate. And I think, for anyone listening, if you're sort of earlier on in your journey or wherever you are in your journey, it's like where you are is where you'll have the most insight and energy to kind of give. So you don't need to wait until you get somewhere to start
Absolutely. I mean, I
sharing.
think the bench peg is a great example, because I literally discovered that about 6 months or so ago. Because every time I'd seen a bench peg or I'd seen them for sale or advertised, they're always showing with the sloping side at the top, and it never occurred to me. And I saw a video that another jeweler had posted about it, and I contacted her and said, I love this, can I share this as well? And she laughed at me and said, of course you can, because everyone's got to see it for the first time. And that's I think that's got over 250,000 views or something now. And I did kind of put it out there thinking, oh my God, am I opening myself up to a backlash now of how could you be so silly? How did you not know that? But actually, I think about 70% of people didn't know that either. And so many people were like, oh my God, thank you for posting that, because if you hadn't done that, I would never have known. And now, yeah, I leave the bench peg that way up all the time because it is actually so much easier. And it's, it took me 5 years to know that. But
Yeah.
it's you have to see everything for the first time at some point. No matter how many years experience you might have, there's always something that you haven't come across, you know.
Yeah, little mini revelations,
Yeah.
which, yeah. And I think also it's your excitement about it which helps everyone else because it's the
You
way.
don't need to feel, yeah, you don't need to feel silly for not knowing something.
Mm.
Don't be afraid of that, and everyone makes mistakes, just as everyone doesn't, you got to learn somehow.
So you also are quite creative, I think, with your reels. Like I said, you show your face, but you show lots of different angles, you do transitions. I guess some of that maybe comes from your experience of video editing and stuff, but how, like, do you think about that in advance? Does it just come out in the edit? Like, how do you get, yeah, that kind of all to work together?
I think actually it came from my husband, funny enough, because he watches a lot of a lot of YouTube videos of people sailing, and people making the videos. And he said to me, there's the thing called B-roll, when you're taking little background shots, and it's all about painting a picture. And I think the thing that I do with my reels is I try and show things in detail and from different angles, and little clips of just a few seconds here and there is enough. And sometimes I speed certain things up, sometimes I slow them down. It's quite hard because you've only got on my account that only has a minute and a half to show something. Whereas actually, if you were to show it in real time, you're talking several hours. It's quite hard to put. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll do the whole reel, and then to make more use of the content, I've realized now is I can film, if I'm doing one of those long process reels of making something from start to finish, how many other reels can I get out of it as I go by breaking up the stages? And I think I filmed a reel making a sea glass ring, and I think I got 3 or 4 different reels out of it, shorter ones, by showing different tools I used, or showing different sections of that in more detail. So reels do take a long time to film, but it's worth it because by filming one thing, you can get a lot of content out of it, by filming sort of different angles, different things, and just doing it that way. And I think the first couple of reels, I spent ages trying to fit the fit the clips to the music. And now I don't bother with that at all. I just make the reel, and then I find a song, and somehow I seem to find an audio track or something that fits. And every now and then it's a couple of beats where it looks really clever, like I've deliberately edited it to fit the music, and I haven't. It's just it's just the music comes
Quite
later.
clever like that. Yeah,
I know, but it's that's quite fun as well, as you finish it thinking, oh, can I finding the audio that just kind of fits, as well.
yeah, yeah. Wonderful. So last question on Instagram, and then we'll move on to talk a bit about your making and things. Um, I mean, I guess you've kind of shared some of this, but if you had to give somebody who's struggling a bit with Instagram one bit of advice that's really helped you, what would it be?
I think the biggest bit of advice would be to just find a way of doing it that you are comfortable with. And a posting frequency that works for you. You don't have to post every single day. You don't have to show up. If you're not comfortable being in front of the camera, then don't. Sometimes as a great introduction, you can film yourself working without looking at the camera, or without speaking, or get somebody else to film you doing it. So you can put yourself out there without having to actually turn to the camera and talk to it. And I think it's just being yourself. I think one of the things I find, well, the way I look at my whole social media is, I've got my business in kind of 2 different columns. I've got my website and my selling platforms, and then I've got my social media presence. And I don't want the two to ever be a direct replica of each other. So my website has my finished jewelry. That's where you go at the end. That's where you can buy things. That's the snazzy, the finished, the polished final version. But my social media is everything that I can't show there. It's me, it's the process, it's how things are made, where they're made, why they're made, and the story behind it. And I think in doing that, it gives me the best of both worlds, because I think, depending on wherever people come across first, if they come across my website first, it's a handmade jewelry website, and they're thinking, oh, the jewelry's lovely. Is it really handmade? Who's the person? What's the process? I want to know, because obviously these days, money is tight, cost of living crisis. If people are going to invest in handmade jewelry, they want to know that it's genuine. And then your social media platform gives you the chance to do that. Because I go to websites sometimes, and if I want to find out a little bit more about the business, straight away go to the social media site, and then you can see the person behind it. And I think the same way, if someone found me on Instagram and likes my jewelry, likes what I'm doing, and they want to buy it, then they can go to my website and do that there. So I don't need to do the hard sell, lots and lots of photographs of sort of finished jewelry, buy this kind of marketing side, because my website is already there. And I think taking that different view of social media, and I think the thing as well is the way you look at social media. I think a lot of people feel pressure to make it a success, to to get loads of followers and to do, but it's not really. Social media is supposed to be social, and they say people use it to engage with people, to be educated, or to entertain. They don't go to Instagram necessarily to buy stuff. People don't go to Instagram to look, to shop, or to buy things. So I think if you bear that in mind when you're using social media and think, well, if I get sales on here, that's great. But at the end of the day, you've got a website or a selling platform, then social media can offer you the chances to show everything else. And I think the more variety you can add into your post and the more different types of content that you can include, the less restrictive it feels. So if you post about a broad range of things, then you're appealing to a broader range of people. You're more likely to get your content seen than if you're very sort of niche specific. And I think that way you can just, you'll enjoy using it more as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's wonderful advice. And I think, I saw someone recently who's got quite a big following actually, and they turned off their showing their likes. I think you can turn off showing your likes on
Yeah.
posts because they were they were like, I just don't want to know. Like I don't want to know. I just want to post and like talk to people and take the pressure off. And I could kind of understand. I was like, not that we should all do that necessarily, but yeah, I think one thing I notice about you is I feel like you don't feel pressure. And that allows you to be creative, which attracts people to you. And I think the more that we can do that and kind of enjoy these spaces and talking, talking with other people about jewelry, about making, about the things that we love and enjoy, the more fruitful it kind of is for everyone. So yeah, interesting. Okay, great. So excitingly, you're going to be joining us in September for the Diploma in Silver Jewellery. Yay. And I think what's really nice, so we've had a chat about this, haven't we? And you're going to be sharing about your journey because not only are you taking the course, but you're great at sharing things. And so people will get to see you on our social media account as well, kind of sharing that journey. A bit like in the old days, we used to have like bloggers, didn't you? Be like,
Yes.
oh, this
Yes.
blogger is coming to join us and share their journey. Not that you can't still have bloggers now, I guess. It just feels a little bit 2000. Um, so you will be seeing more of Kelly on our socials from September because she's going to be sharing the journey and we're going to be sharing some of her journey. So tell us a bit about why you decided to join the diploma, Kelly, and what you're excited about.
I think the diploma is something that I've always wanted to do from the very beginning. When I found the Jewellers Academy page, when I first started making jewelry, I thought ultimately that was something that I aspired to do. But obviously it is a huge commitment in terms of both sort of time and finances. So I think for myself, I wanted to be absolutely sure that jewelry making was something I wanted to do. And I wanted to give myself a few years to see that not just could I make a success of it, but would I enjoy doing it enough to make this my second career in life? How serious was I to commit? And then it gets to this sort of stage a few years down the line, and I think, yes, I'm ready now. And I am self-taught. Everything I've learned up until now, I think I did a couple of day courses at the very beginning when someone showed me the very basics of soldering because I was terrified of fire. And that's sort of, again, just to make sure before I bought any tools or equipment, to make sure, am I going to be okay doing this? And then from then onwards, I've learnt so many techniques and things that I can do, and I can, the sea glass was the reason I got into it, so I can make a pretty good bezel setting. The sea glass and the gemstone stones that I love working with, the big cabochons, and that's pretty much where I'm at. And it's almost like I feel I've reached my limit technically because I am running the business alongside, and I'm enjoy doing what I'm doing, and I've gotten good at doing that. But now I want to learn more techniques. And the problem I have sometimes is the way I learn is I will not learn the hard stuff if I don't have to. And it's needing some kind of accountability, I think, in having someone talk me through it, and having a structure, having a calendar, having a program. And the brilliant thing about the diploma is because it's live, it's done in sort of real time. There are weekly projects and sort of termly projects, and you follow it along. Um, in doing that, I've got deadlines, and I've got a timetable to stick to. And for me, the kind of learning that helps me because it forces me to do it. I've wanted to learn how to do stone setting, flush settings, claw settings, work with wax. These are things I've always wanted to do. But 5 years later, I still haven't done them, and there's a reason for that. And if I just left it up to myself, if you just gave me a bunch of online tutorials and said, "Here you go," I wouldn't do it. And I think, being with, and it goes back to sort of my Navy days when I did professional training courses too. One of the things I love is learning alongside other people as well. When I did my air traffic control training, it was one of the best professional training courses that I did. And it was learn a little bit, practice it, learn a little bit more, practice it. And it got progressively harder as we went. But at every point, having tutors and mentors and course mates to sort of support me, that's what I'm looking forward to, is not just doing this journey for myself, but doing it with other people. And not just, so we can celebrate when things go right and commiserate if it doesn't. And I know there's Facebook groups, and to be able to chat with other people, if you find that something hard, you can talk it through. Because I think one of the things about, again, when you're sort of self-taught, it's the same as being self-employed. You're on your own and you're making things, and you're thinking, am I doing this right? Am I doing this well enough? Is this the best way of doing this? I mean, I know there's lots of different ways of doing things, but could I be doing this better? And to be taught and learning with other people, I think is sort of reassuring. And it's a confidence thing as well, sort of reassurance that you get to a certain point and think, well, actually, I'd like to be told, yes, like someone tell me, yes, that's great. You've done a good job there. You know what you're doing. And that's important to me as well.
That makes a lot of sense. I think so many things you've said are what previous diploma students have said they have enjoyed about the program. One of them being literally just having a jeweler who's, really experienced saying, yes, you did it right. That's correct. You can sell that now. Like that's how you make an
Yeah.
engagement ring, and it's done and everything's great. And it's funny, but we do need that, especially when we're learning stuff on our own. And it's quite, some jewelry making is quite hard. Some of the stone settings, some things we might have to do 5 times before we get one that's actually right. And that's a great thing, because the sense of achievement that we get when we can do those things is amazing, and watching the progress and the skills. But I think you're right that we need support and encouragement to get there, because when the fourth one goes wrong and you haven't done the fifth one yet, you need someone to be like, it's okay, I made 4 wrong as well, like this, you're on the right path, because it's so easy to give up on those kind of harder things. I think I had the same with you, like with beading. I mean, not that I didn't get things wrong with beading, but generally speaking, first or second, third time, I got it. Whereas with some of the more complex things, it might take a little bit longer, and that's normal. It's not because you're not good or because you won't achieve it eventually. It's because it's a harder thing to do. And so more support is definitely needed. And I think what you said about the community, that's what people tend to say, is that they come for the techniques, they come for the skills, but what they got out of it the most, obviously they did get the techniques and the skills, but is the community and the connection and the jewelry friends and the learning things from each other all the time, which I think you're going to enjoy that about it.
I think so. Well, that's one of the important things as well, isn't it? A lot of my own followers on Instagram are buying into the journey, and they're excited. I can tell they're excited for me, and I love that. And I get so much support and encouragement and motivation from my followers, and not just the jewelry makers, but the people that don't make jewelry, that are just buying into my journey. And I think because, and again, going back to one of the reasons my Instagram account does so well, is because I am still learning. I am still on a journey. I'm still educating myself. You're never too old to learn. And I think you can always, investing in your skills and sort of going forwards and learning as much as you can to get to that next sort of level. I felt like I reached sort of a plateau in terms of technical ability, and I wanted to go that little bit further.
Mm.
And and sort of in doing that, and it's, like you say, it's the confidence and liaising with other people, and really enjoying. And people have asked me as well, are you going to share? Make sure you share your journey. Make sure, I want to see how you get on. And I'm like, yeah, of course I will. Of course I will. Even if it goes wrong.
Yeah, you can't not share.
No, exactly. But it's reassuring for people to see. And one of the nicest things people ever say from my Instagram followers is that I am inspiring and I'm an inspiration to people. And that's something I never expected. I never expected to be sort of regarded in that way. And that's hugely important to me because this is my second career. I am 43 in next month. And, this is my sort of second vocation in life. Excuse me. And I think being able to see that you can sort of get to sort of like your second career and you can do a 180 pivot and you can do something else and you can do it alongside your family and things like that. And I think, that's I can see that is inspiring to people, and, to show that, I'm not afraid to go back and keep learning. And there's things that I don't know. I'm not an expert in everything. And I have three young daughters, and I'm always saying to them, you can do whatever you want to do as long as you're willing to sort of work hard and put in the time and the effort and the commitment. And then, so I want to prove to them that I, put my money where my mouth is and that I'm learning too, and I'm, ready to take on sort of new skills.
Mm.
So yeah, that's important to me as well. Definitely.
Yeah, it's a great message. It's a wonderful message to pass on. And like you said, it's not just saying it, it's doing it. And they will see you doing it and it will naturally kind of become part of their experience. And I think that is very inspiring. And I think you're inspiring a lot of people. And, to be inspiring is not about trying to be inspiring. It's just about being yourself and going for what you want, which is what you're doing. And that naturally I think does inspire people, and probably everyone listening to this podcast is inspiring people in one way or another, because we're all kind of working on something, which is always a great kind of thing to be doing. So I'm excited to see your journey, Kelly. And I know you've been getting your tools and bits and pieces ready
Yes,
and your
I have.
materials. Yeah.
Pretty much getting there. I think it's one of those things as well, is sort of, it's an investment in my future as well, is what I'm thinking. Because one day I love teaching people. I used to be an instructor when I was an air traffic controller, and I love teaching people. I love helping people, as I've already said. And one day my dream would be to have a little jewelry shop somewhere where I can meet people and they can come and see me, and I can maybe do workshops and sort of tutorials and things. And I think when you're making jewelry, you can kind of, you make it to sell it. You can, there it is, I've made this, would you like to buy it? But I think if you're teaching other people potentially to do something, for me, I'd like to have a little bit more sort of reassurance and accreditation and be able to say that I've been taught myself before I try and teach anybody else, if that makes sense.
Yes, I think you're right. And I think with teaching, it's all the troubleshooting. So it's not just I can make this, but it's what are the 25 different ways it can go wrong and how can I fix it? Like I do jewelry classes as well, and I'm learning some things at the moment. And my teacher can take my bad version of something and fix it almost like a repair on the spot, enough for me to get to the end of the project so then I can do it again. And eventually, like the fifth time, I'll get it right. But like I just think, wow, that's like a next level skill, not just to be able to make the thing, but to be able to problem solve any problem that a student has,
Absolutely.
and not perfectly, obviously, we don't have to be perfect, but is the next level. And I think that's quite interesting. And I know when you said on your social media and on ours that you're going to be doing this diploma, loads of people are really excited for you. And some people were like, why don't you do the next level diploma? You're already so good. Which I think is a fair point, because you do have skills in jewelry making and you've built a business already and stuff. But perhaps you could share a bit, because I guess it's linked to what we've been talking about, why you're starting with the silver diploma and not trying to push yourself to skip to the fine straight away.
I think, well, the first thing was I didn't want to put too much pressure on myself, because this is the first sort of formal learning or experience that I've done for a long time. So I didn't want to make too hard a commitment. That was something that I couldn't keep up with. But also in terms of sort of my technical abilities, one piece of advice is I would give anyone starting their jewelry journey is do one thing at a time and get good at it before you move on. I made the mistake quite early on of trying to do all the things all at once and overwhelming myself completely. So I kind of reined back and I sort of forced myself to sort of focused on bezel settings, in particular, soldering, hammering, making things that were within my sort of skill set, and then getting really good at them before sort of moving on. And I had a look at the two different diplomas because a lot of people have said to me, why aren't you doing the fine diploma? But when I look back at the skills I've actually got, I've never done flush setting. I've done tube setting, but only with ready-made tubes, which is a little bit of a cheat. I've never done claw setting with gemstones. I've never worked with wax, and I've definitely never worked with gold. So by the time I sort of filled in the gaps and taught myself how to do all of those things to do the fine diploma, well, then I might as well have done the silver diploma first. It's like I've done one or two things, yes, but actually, when you look at the content and what the diploma teaches you, then no, I haven't done enough, and I didn't feel like I had done enough.
Mm.
So I'm looking forward to sort of getting good at the things I already know how to do, and then filling in the gaps and learning the things that I haven't had a chance to do yet, or I've been too scared to try. Especially now as well, when silver and gold are so expensive. I don't want to, there's another danger when you're self-taught and you're doing it yourself is to mess it up and end up costing yourself a fortune. So to have a little bit more guidance doing these things, I think is sensible as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you're going to love the program, Kelly, and I'm very excited that not only are you going to be doing it, but you're going to be sharing the journey on your socials and on ours as well. So I think you're going to keep on inspiring lots of people through that journey. Last kind of question for you before we wrap up is what is next for you? I mean, I guess we kind of know because you're going to be doing training, but yeah, you've talked about like one day you'd love to have this jewelry shop and do teaching. What's kind of in front of you right now?
I think at the moment I've deliberately taken back this. I've done my business, built my business up for so many years, and it's got to the point now where it's doing okay and it's sort of self-sustainable. And I thought now's the time to sort of take a bit of a break, take the pressure off selling, marketing, making money as a business, and focus on sort of improving what's already there and improving my website, learning more skills, kind of adding a bit of finesse, and then sort of moving forwards with that. Like there's techniques I'd like to try. I think I'm really looking forward to doing the wax carving, wax jewelry. I could see the sort of things that I like making, or I want to be able to make. That skill will come in handy, and I want to work with. I want to be able to incorporate smaller gemstones, sparkly stones, as well as the big cabochon stones that I use in my jewelry. So I'm looking forward to that and the techniques. And I think just progressing my designs and my ideas. And I've got lots and lots in my head, and some I've written down somewhere. And with my sort of my brand and my style, and I think finding my style as well. I tend to make a little bit of everything. I've got quite an eclectic collection at the moment of things that I do. And I think moving forward with the new skills that I'll be learning, and perhaps sort of honing in a little bit more focused on what I'm making and sort of moving forward with that. And I'm looking forward to sort of seeing where that goes in evolutionary terms, really.
Brilliant. Oh, exciting times. Yeah, it's nice to have a little bit of time to focus on training as well, isn't it? And like you said, taking the pressure off. And I'm sure you'll still get lots of orders and all the things because interestingly, when we take the pressure off, it doesn't necessarily mean things stop, but it's nice to give yourself that time to kind of grow and develop. So anybody listening thinking about perhaps joining the diploma and would like to join with Kelly,
Yes, come along.
be one of her teammates in the cohort this year, there's only a couple of weeks left. So the deadline for all diplomas this year closes on the 7th of June. Even though the course starts in September, we need a little bit of time to get kits and things out to everybody and assign mentors and all those good things. And we like to give people some time off over the summer as well. So yes, get on it, have a look. I'll put a link in the show notes to the silver diploma. There's also other diplomas if you are further along or looking at doing silver metal play. And Kelly, if people want to come and find you on socials and come and say hi and let you know that they've listened to the podcast and that they too were inspired by you, where's the best place for them to connect with you online?
The best place really is through Instagram. That's my main sort of social media platform. You can send me a message through my website, but Instagram is the one that I use sort of most often, and I sort of will connect and follow. And if anyone's doing the diploma too, then let me know, because obviously we'll be course mates and that sort of thing. But yeah, my handle is Willow and Twig with 2 G's at the end. But yeah, come and find me on Instagram.
Yes. It won't be hard to find Kelly, and we'll make sure we put a link to your Instagram in the show notes as well. So do go and say hi. And yeah, Thank you, Kelly, so much for coming. Thank you for, sharing so open and honestly about your journey. And, I'll definitely be following as well. And yeah, just lovely to have a chat with you today.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited for September and I know it's going to come around quickly.
Oh, absolutely.